Hello friends, neighbors, concerned citizens. I have some things I want to share with you about a huge development nearby that's doing some terrible things, and this has been going on for years. I want to talk about how it's been enabled by your state representative, Ernest Bales. Ernest Bales empowered Trey Harris. He's given him all of these authorities by creating a so-called municipal management district that has given Trey Harris basically total control without accountability to anything. He's been able to, empowered by Ernest Bales, do whatever he wants in Colony Ridge. He's not accountable to anybody. He doesn't have to follow the regulations or the code. What he's doing there is not up to code, and it's damaging the environment. It's caused a flooding zone and pollution, poisoning our waters. This is a problem that affects you and where you live. And it's going to get worse if we don't stop it now. And how do we stop it? By voting Ernest Bales out of office and voting in someone who's not going to put up with the corruption and the lax standard and the environmental damage. And that's me, Dr. Missick, who's going to put an end to the nightmare of Trey Harris, John Harris, Colony Ridge, Terrenos Houston. We're going to put an end to this, and we're going to hold this man and this so-called housing development accountable to the code, to regulations, and to the rule of law. He's not above the law, and we're not going to allow him to operate outside or above the law anymore. Ernest Bales created Colony Ridge with House Bill 4341. We're going to repeal it and then hold John and Trey Harris accountable for the damage and harm they've done to our community. This is why Ernest Bales must be replaced. He's empowered Trey Harris to do this. Your representative in Austin should represent you and the people and residents of this district, and not corrupt, privileged, wealthy land developers who doesn't care about the people here, who's exploiting our entire area, and undocumented people. Hello, welcome to Drainage Failures and Flooding Dangers at Colony Ridge. I'm Dr. Stephen Andrew Missick, and in this program, we're going to be looking at the dangers of the drainage system and the shoddiness of the development of Colony Ridge. There's a lot of controversies about Colony Ridge, and I talk about them on other videos, but on this video, I'm going to focus specifically at the drainage and flooding problem. If you want more information about this, you can go to reduceflooding.com and look at the articles written by Bob Rehak. And on today's program, I'm going to be looking at one of the articles published at this website. On this program, we'll be looking at some information I gleaned from one of the articles published on this website. And this is on reduceflooding.com, and we're looking at an article which was published on October 8th, 2023. And it says, Karma strikes again. Colony Ridge drainage systems severely eroding. So, let's listen to the story. Karma is fast catching up with the corner-cutting Colony Ridge developer, which is Trey Harris and his brother John, in Liberty County. Drainage infrastructure that doesn't meet Liberty County regulations is fast eroding. And tomorrow, a special session of the Texas legislature will start investigating the embattled development. The special session will focus on crime, infrastructure, illegal immigration, and more. Now, this has come and passed, and the Texas legislature has done nothing much to address the issue of Colony Ridge. The only issue that they really dealt with was the lack of law enforcement. And I don't feel that the steps they take are going to resolve the situation in any real way. The problems with the development and the problem with John and Trey Harris has to be confronted directly. As long as Trey Harris's wingman, Ernest Bales, is in the Texas State Representative representing HD 18, nothing is going to be done about Colony Ridge. Nothing of any substance, anyway. So let's continue. To offset negative publicity, the developer invited legislators to meet at his development last week and tour it. But just before the meeting, Liberty County deputies, a narcotics unit, and a SWAT team responded to an abduction at gunpoint. They also launched a manhunt for 2 escaped suspects in the sprawling development, which is now 50% larger than Manhattan. On the day of the developers' meeting, the main entrance to the development flooded badly. Ditches designed to keep roads clear in a 5-year storm overflowed during a 1-year rain. The next day, when the storm clouds cleared, an aerial survey showed that Colony Ridge drainage channels and stormwater retention basins were badly damaged. Had the developer simply followed Liberty County regulations, he would have reduced or avoided the costly damage. Now we're going to look at this problem with Colony Ridge. First, we're going to look at all the facts. We're going to look at data, empirical data. But at the end of this program, I'm going to offer solutions, especially if you live in Liberty San Jacinto County and you're concerned about what's happening with Colony Ridge. At the end of the program, we'll look at solutions, how you can do something to put an end to this horrible nightmare. Missing erosion controls. Section 50 of Liberty County Subdivision and Development Regulation specifies requirements for the construction of drainage ditches and stormwater retention basins. The county emphasizes the need to control erosion and sedimentation. It warns these twin threats can have very serious effects on stormwater ditches and basins. Specifically, they can cause slope failures, reduce the efficacy of drainage channels, clog drainage culverts, reduce channel capacity, reduce maintainability of drainage facilities, increase maintenance cost, and require more frequent repairs. Also, increase turbidity and impair water quality. To counter these problems, the regulations say interceptor structures and backslope swale systems are required to prevent sheet flows from eroding the side slopes of open channels and detention facilities. This is from Liberty County Subdivision and Development Regulations, page 100. We're going to look at a diagram here that shows how a typical backslope interceptor structure functions. You can see the direction of the flow. We see the maintenance roads. We see the swales behind main banks of ditch intercept runoff and pipes to channel that then channel runoff in the swale to the bottom of the ditch. What are the benefits of this? The benefits are it reduces bank erosion, reduces the filling in of the ditch, maintenance needs, and flood risk. The regulations also specify design requirements for these structures and other erosion control measures. Altogether, Colony Ridge apparently violated requirements for backslope, interceptor, and swale systems, Bermuda grass on the side slopes of the channels and ditches, erosion controls around outfall pipes, geotextile bedding under rip wrap, pilot channels at the bottom of the detention basins, maintenance strips, storage of excavated dirt, side slope angles. Not all locations in the Colony Ridge exhibit all these problems. Regardless, karma was swift. Thursday's 1-year rain severely eroded the side slopes of the channels and basins. Eroded sediment also started filling in new ditches and basins. Repairs and compliance, if attempted, will be costly and time-consuming. Karma hurts residents upstream and down. While critics might rejoice at the karma, others will pay the price. The developers' practices increase flood risk for people in Colony Ridge as well as those downstream. In the development, erosion threatens property, Downstream, sediment reduces the conveyance of streams, increasing flood risk. TCEQ has warned the developer about his construction practices before, but many dubious practices continue. We're going to look at some photographs. The first two are NASA satellite images from Google Earth. The developer's practices increase flood risk for people in Colony Ridge as well as those downstream. In the development, erosion threatens property. Downstream, sediment reduces the conveyance of streams, increasing flood risk. TCEQ has warned the developer about his construction practices before, but many dubious practices continue. We're going to look at some photographs. The first two are NASA satellite images from Google Earth. Bob Rehak shot the rest on 10/6/23, with one exception. Let's look at the threats to Colony Ridge residents. When a 3-mile ditch down at the center of Colony Ridge was completed, it was about 120 feet wide at the yellow line. Today, it's 76 feet wider. Residents on each side lost 38 feet of their backyards. This ditch has steadily widened since its construction. Without backslope interceptors, Without backslope interceptor swales or grass to reduce erosion, millions of cubic feet of dirt swept downstream from the single ditch. Then, when the water slowed at the headwaters of Lake Houston, the sediment dropped out of suspension, reducing the conveyance of the East Fork San Jacinto. Here are several shots showing what erosion damage looks like up close from a helicopter. The ravine forms more ravines. No room for a maintenance road here. It's been eroded. Or here. Virtually every ditch in Colony Ridge has erosion and compliance problems. Here's another one. No maintenance road, no backslope interceptor swales, no grass on the sides of the ditch. Note, home on the right has no back fence. What happened to it? Note, piles of dirt stored where they can erode back down into the ditches. Even detention basins in the newer sections of Colony Ridge have erosion problems. Again, most don't have grass on the side slopes, nor do they have backslope interceptor swales. Many, like the one below, don't have room for maintenance roads. Note the erosion threat already these recently placed mobile homes in the newer section of Colony Ridge. Erosion will soon threaten one of the new roads in Colony Ridge. Regulations specify that riprap, like you see here, should have had a geotextile lining under it to reduce erosion. Erosion washed sediment into new basin. Also note how erosion is starting to block the outfall at the lower right. No backslope swales here. Not much Bermuda grass either. Regs say side slopes shall be no steeper than 3 horizontal to 1 vertical. 3 to 1. No grass or backslope interceptor system here. No pilot channels either. Note piles of excavated dirt stacked on both sides of the road, eroding back into the ditches. As all those ditches and basins gradually fill in, they will add to future flood risk. But repairing such issues will be a big, costly challenge, one the developer has ignored for years. Now let's look at threats to downstream residents. All this erosion also continues to downstream flooding and likely violates Section 11.086 of the Texas Water Code. It states that no person may divert the natural flow of surface waters in this state in a manner that damages the property of another. Where does all this eroded sediment eventually go? Well, to Lake Houston, of course. This is the East San Jacinto downstream from Colony Ridge. This photograph was taken Thursday, October the 5th, 2023, the same day as the shots above. The river slows down where it meets the headwaters of Lake Houston. This causes sediment to drop out of suspension. Harris County, the city of Houston, and the state just finished a major dredging effort on the East Fork that cost the public tens of millions of dollars. Before dredging, it looked like this. This is the East Fork Mouth Bar after Imelda and before dredging. This bar grew from 4,000 feet between Harvey and Imelda. But the cost is only part of the issue. Reduction in the river's conveyance contributed to the flooding of thousands of nearby homes during Harvey and Imelda. Harris County Commissioner's Court may address these issues on Tuesday. Drainage is a public safety issue. And it's not the only one caused by the developer's disregard for the regulations. Colony Ridge has filled in wetlands. TCEQ has also documented problems with the Colony Ridge sewage system that led to 48,000 gallons of fecal matter escaping into Lake Houston, the source of drinking water for 2 million people. This means that Trey Harris is pumping raw sewage into our drinking waters. Colony Ridge doesn't have enough fire hydrants or water pressure to comply with Liberty County Fire Code. What happens if a fire breaks out during a drought? I mean, the whole Tri-County area could burn down. Hundreds of people could die. But Ernest Bales has made sure that Trey Harris can operate with impunity. Trey Harris, because of Ernest Bales empowering him, can do whatever the hell he wants without accountability, any accountability whatsoever. And we'll talk more about that at the end of this article here. Harris County's Commissioner Court may discuss these problems on Tuesday at the request of Precinct 3 Commissioner Tom Ramsey, P.E. See item 406 of the agenda. The developer alleges that racism I'm sorry. The developer alleges that racism motivates the criticism of his Hispanic development. But racism does not explain flooding, feces, and fire. The failure of a developer to follow regulations shouldn't pit Liberty County against Harris County, rich against poor, Democrats against Republicans. We all suffer equally. We all face increased risk. And Colony Ridge is one issue that we should all find common cause. This is Bob Rahak speaking. He says, I hope the commissioners' courts in both counties support the legislature's investigation into Colony Ridge. I also pray that both counties can work together to protect all residents, and that includes people that are undocumented. Everyone should live in safety and security and be treated fairly. So fundamentally, the problem with Colony Ridge, the problem of Colony Ridge, can be traced down to one person particularly, and that is State Representative Ernest Bales, who created Colony Ridge with House Bill 4341. Now, he'll protest that, says, well, Trey Harris and John Harris, they started that development before, but he created this legislation. You need to understand that our Attorney General, whom Ernest Bales impeached, did an investigation to this issue. And I recommend that you watch, or that you read this letter for yourself. Now, I have done an audio version of this letter so you can listen to it on my YouTube channel, but let's listen to what he says in conclusion. It says, this is from Attorney General Ken Paxton. I'm beyond disappointed in Representative Bales for apparently working to enrich specific developers, that means John and Trey Harris, at enormous expense to the rest of the public, and reducing the quality of life for their own constituents. I have watched journalists and politicians alike downplay this problem. In lockstep, they minimize the scale of cost and, worst of all, the unjust deprivation of self-governance endured by the people of Texas, who never ascended to the creation of a sprawling, unincorporated, ungoverned zone that caters in no small part to other county citizens, other country citizens, non-citizens. We have to indebt ourselves and spend money that we don't have to cater to illegal aliens who come over here to live off our largesse, and we're struggling ourselves. And Trey Harris and Ernest Bales want to put a heavy burden on the people of Liberty and San Jacinto County. At the same time, we see such crime going on in that area and cartel activity that not only is this, it's exploiting us, exploiting the illegal aliens that are living there, the undocumented people. It's exploiting this whole thing, is the exploitation of the citizens of San Jacinto and Liberty County. But it's also placing a heavy burden on us that we can barely afford. We can barely make ends meet for ourselves, and now they want to place this huge burden of people who are non-citizens. They have to live off our largesse, and we can't afford it. And then not only that, it's not safe. We have murderers attracted to this area because of the sanctuary zone, sanctuary city created by Ernest Bales. So it says, we never assented or consented, we didn't do either one, to the creation of a sprawling, unincorporated, ungoverned zone that caters in no small part to other countries' citizens, but forces us to pay for the associated cost. So what happened is Ernest Bales created, it's actually illegal. It doesn't comply with the law. He created what's called a municipal management district, which is basically a fiefdom. He bequeathed his own little private kingdom of Trey Harris called Colony Ridge, and he's allowed Trey Harris to skirt regulations, cut corners. Just read this letter. It's disgusting. So fundamentally, the problem with Colony Ridge, the problem of Colony Ridge, can be traced down to one person particularly, and that is State Representative Ernest Bales, who created Colony Ridge with House Bill 4341. Now he'll protest that, says, well, Trey Harris and John Harris, they started that development before, but he created this legislation. You need to understand that our Attorney General, whom Ernest Bales impeached, did an investigation to this issue. And I recommend that you watch, or that you read this letter for yourself. Now, I have done an audio version of this letter so you can listen to it on my YouTube channel, but let's listen to what he says in conclusion. It says, this is from Attorney General Ken Paxton, I'm beyond disappointed in Representative Bales for apparently working to enrich specific developers, that means John and Trey Harris, at enormous expense to the rest of the public, and reducing the quality of life for their own constituents. I have watched journalists and politicians alike downplay this problem. In lockstep, they minimize the scale, cost, and worst of all, the unjust deprivation of self-governance endured by the people of Texas, who never assented to the creation of a sprawling, unincorporated, ungoverned zone that caters in no small part to other county citizens, other country citizens, non-citizens. We have to indebt ourselves and spend money that we don't have to cater to illegal aliens who come over here to live off our largesse, and we're struggling ourselves. And Trey Harris and Ernest Bales want to put a heavy burden on the people of Liberty and San Jacinto County. At the same time, we see such crime going on in that area and cartel activity that not only is this, it's exploiting us, exploiting the illegal aliens that are living there, the undocumented people. It's exploiting this whole thing, is the exploitation of the citizens of San Jacinto and Liberty County. But it's also placing a heavy burden on us that we can barely afford. We can barely make ends meet for ourselves, and now they want to place this huge burden of people who are non-citizens. They have to live off our largesse, and we can't afford it. And then not only that, it's not safe. We have murderers attracted to this area because of the sanctuary zone, sanctuary city created by Ernest Bales. So it says, we never assented or consented, we didn't do either one, to the creation of a sprawling, unincorporated, ungoverned zone that caters in no small part to other country citizens, but forces us to pay for the associated cost. So what happened is Ernest Bales created, it's actually illegal. It doesn't comply with the law. He created what's called a municipal management district, which is basically a fiefdom. He bequeathed his own little private kingdom of Trey Harris called Colony Ridge, and he's allowed Trey Harris to skirt regulations, cut corners.
just just read this letter. It's disgusting. So what does this mean? This means that Ernest Bales is a con man who betrayed his own constituents to this greedy, unethical, and immoral so-called land developers, John and Trey Harris. And Trey Harris has decided to become the face of this fiasco. So Ernest Bell says, well, the reason why I created that 4341 is Trey Harris already started doing that. I was going to help him. I was going to try to manage it. We're just going to manage it. Well, you've done a piss poor job of it, haven't you? This man doesn't have to comply with the regulations. Doesn't have to do anything that is required by law. Do whatever he wants with impunity, apparently, and it's causing serious environmental destruction. So not only is he causing a population explosion that we're not ready for or able to afford, but we have to pay for it. He's going to Ernest Bales gets his cut. But then we have, like I said, there's a lot of associated costs with the crime and the cartel activity, but also damaging the environment and causing flooding. All the way down poisoning with feces and urine our public drinking waters, causing flooding as far afield as Kingwood. So, Ernest Bell says, I created Colony Ridge through this legislation, HB 4341, so I could manage it. Well, if that's true, which it's not, he's incompetent, isn't he? So he needs to be removed from office. But as it states here in this letter, the Colony Ridge legislation that Ernest Bales wrote to create this fiefdom for his friend Trey Harris, to create, this illegal immigration hub of human drug, sex, and child trafficking that he created with HB 4341, he did it secretly. He did it surreptitiously. It wasn't brought on the floor for debate. He didn't inform his constituents what he was doing. He snuck it in because he knew it's not what people wanted. He knew that this was going to do great harm to his constituents. But he doesn't give a damn about you. All he cares about is his cut. If he had any ethics or morality, he would stand up for the people and put an end to this nonsense. But he doesn't care. He can smile in your face. He's a sociopath. Make it, look, I care about you. And yet he's just like a con man. He's a con man. Goes to Austin and he's destroying our House district. What are we going to do about it? If you look at the man's voting record, like I said, I have several videos on my channel. You can check them out. He votes with the Democrats often. He actually votes more liberal than most liberal Democrats in Austin. He's a Democrat that ran on the Republican ticket. This shows that Ernest Bales has no integrity. If he had integrity and honesty, he would run as a Democrat on the Democrat ticket. Instead of lying to his constituents, whenever it's election, he campaigns and he says he's a conservative Republican, and he goes to Austin, he votes as a progressive Democrat. I have everything documented. Check the other videos. So what can we do about this? What can we do about it? I'm running for Texas State Legislature to represent you and your needs. And the greatest need that we're facing in this House district, in Liberty and San Jacinto County, is for someone to hold Trey Harris accountable for what he's doing, to enforce the regulations upon him. He's made a mess. You've seen it. And he's been held unaccountable and protected by Ernest Bales as he cuts corners, violates the regulations, to enrich himself at our expense, as Ken Paxton said. Protected by Ernest Bales, who is a representative, but he's not representing this county, this House district, or these counties, this House district. He's not representing you in Austin. He's the minion, the toady of Trey Harris. And he's in Austin working for Trey Harris. State representatives have 2-year terms. This is election year. I mean to close Colony Ridge down. I'm running for Texas State Legislature, HD 18, and I'm going to pump the brakes on this, and I'm going to make sure that Trey Harris is confronted with the environmental damage he's done to our district. And he's going to fix it, he's going to clean it up, and he's going to pay fines. We're not going to let these people get away with this anymore. I worked on the border. I believe in border security. 4 years on the military, on the border mission. I believe in building the wall. I'm a Trump supporter. I support Donald Trump's border security policies and immigration policies. But we cannot allow people to be exploited in that shantytown the way Ernest Bales and Trey Harris are doing. And Trey Harris, who's exploiting illegal aliens, documented people, he's exploiting them. He's doing them harm. He's selling them lands. Look at it. Look at those. You can see the shacks. But they're falling into the ditches because they have this not built to standard. It's all falling apart. He doesn't care. If anybody's a racist, it's Trey Harris. He thinks he can take advantage of vulnerable, undocumented workers. Like I said, I believe in border control. I believe in enforcing immigration law. But I'm not going to allow anybody, illegal alien or citizen, to be mistreated or exploited by people like Ernest Bales and Trey Harris. It's wrong. And I'm going to put an end to it. And I'm not going to put up with cartel activity going on. Maybe Trey Harris and Ernest Bales thinks that's fine to have the Sinaloa and Gulf cartels running amok in our area, but I'm not going to put up with it. And when I get into office, HB 4341 is going to be repealed. Sadly, nothing's going to get better in Colony Ridge until Ernest Bales is out of office. But there's another issue. You have to get a candidate in who's not going to put up with this nonsense. Whatever happens, we have to vote Ernest Bales out of office. But I'm asking you voters out there, if you want to confront and put an end to this nightmare, you have to vote for a candidate who's going to hold Trey and John Harris accountable for the damage that they've done to our district, to the citizens of this county, and to those undocumented workers they're exploiting. We're going to put an end to it. And part of the reason why we have to do this, they're calling this a business model. If we don't put a stop to this now, colony ridges are going to be springing up all across the entire state and country. We have to confront this issue. We have to stop it. And you have to have someone in there who's going to fight against it and who's not on the take. So it's not enough to vote Ernest Bales out of office. We need to do that. But you have to get somebody in there, me, who's going to fight against this. We're talking about karma. In this article, I will be the karma that Ernest Bales and Trey Harris deserve. If you want them to get their comeuppance, and you want them to experience karma for all the evil things that they're doing, vote for Dr. Missick, vote for me, and we'll hold these people accountable for what they're doing and put an end to this nonsense. So I have other campaign materials. I want to tell you about the dates. If you're not registered to vote, register now. And also, early voting is February 20th to March 1st. Election day, the primary election day. This is the time we can get rid of Ernest Bales. March 5th. Know these dates. If you know anybody that's concerned about this issue, tell them to vote for Dr. Missick. I will put an end to this nightmare. He's not going to have free reign anymore. All these protections that Ernest Bales has given Trey Harris, I'm going to take away. And then I'm going to hold them accountable. I'm going to hold them accountable, and we're going to enforce the policies, procedures, and regulations in the law on Trey Harris and on Colony Ridge. Actually, I want to see that man out of this county and never step foot in again. We can make it happen. I can do it with your support. So please, these things are very upsetting to see what's happening. Don't feel like you have to move out of this area, if your family's been here for a generation, stay. What we need to do is we need to get Ernest Bales out of Austin and back to his home and send Trey Harris packing, which you better do once I start pursuing him. So please be informed, vote, and tell other people. We can have this great victory if you get involved, let people know, and vote. Vote for a fighter, vote for a change, vote for someone who's going to work to put an end to Colony Ridge. Thank you. God bless you.
I want to mention that this MMD that Ernest Bales created for Trey Harris is a so-called municipal management district. Municipal as in a municipality, which a municipality is usually a single administrative division having corporate status and powers of self-government or jurisdiction as granted by national or regional laws to which it is subordinate. Colony Ridge is not following the laws and regulations that regulate a municipal management district. It's operating outside of the law. Colony Ridge is a private company, not a municipality. Ernest Bales was wrong to grant them this authority. So how is it that a private company was able to get an MMD status from this state representative? Ernest Bales liked to protest, saying, well, Colony Ridge was around before I created House Bill 4341, and the reason why I did this is to manage it. Oh, really? He's managing Colony Ridge, which is operating with impunity against the law, violating regulations and safety standards? He's managing it all right. He's managed to allow Trey Harris to create a substandard drainage system, which has created a new vast flood zone, which is flooding the local area, and as far afield as Kingwood. He has managed to allow Trey Harris to create a shantytown where people live in squalor. He's managed to allow Trey Harris and Colony Ridge to pump tens of thousands of gallons of raw sewage, fecal matter, and urine into our drinking waters. He's managed to allow Trey Harris to be a de facto king and granted him a fiefdom to rule as the Duke of Liberty County, answerable to no one and above the law. That's what Ernest Bales has managed to do. And now you, the voter, can manage to do something as well. On March the 5th, we can manage to vote this man out of office and stop Trey Harris and Colony Ridge in its tracks and hold them accountable for what they're doing to our community and save Liberty, San Jacinto County, and all of House District 18. It's your chance. This is a referendum on Colony Ridge. The power is in your hands to save our county. And you do it by voting Ernest Bales out of office and voting for Dr. Missick. So I hope for the good of the state of Texas, the good of Liberty, San Jacinto County, and Hardin, East Montgomery County, for HD18, for the good of our state, for the good of our country, that you allow me to serve you in Austin and put an end to Colony Ridge. You know, this is a so-called business model. Building these communities so that they're substandard and not up to par, these shanty towns. If we let Trey Harris get away with this, they're going to build these shanty towns, Colony Ridge shanty towns, all across the state of Texas and across this nation. That's what our nation is going to become. A third world shantytown hellhole controlled by the Mexican drug cartels. Is that the future you want for your community? Is that the future you want for yourself and your kids? That's the future that Ernest Bales has in store for us. We have to stop them now. The power is in your hands. Let's vote for a better future for HD18. Let's vote Ernest Bales out of office. And don't vote anybody in that's not going to stand up to Trey Harris and Colony Ridge. I'm the man to do it. I've served in combat. I've served at the border with the military for 4 years. And I'm ready to serve you in Austin to protect you and keep you safe. It's not safe right now. It's not safe for our citizens, for our kids, and it's going to get more and more dangerous the stronger and more powerful and larger Colony Ridge Terrenos Houston grows. We have to put an end to it now. And in conclusion, like I said, once again, the power is in your hands. Let's make a decision for the good of all residents of Liberty and San Jacinto County. Ernest Bales has betrayed his constituents. He put money, greed, and selfishness above our best interests. Let's put the people and our needs first and have a better future of a safe and prosperous community. I've talked to people campaigning, so many people that are leaving this House district because Ernest Bales is destroying it and they don't see hope in the future. There is hope if we can vote Ernest Bales out of office. So I implore you, please, let's do it. Vote for Dr. Missick. Early voting is on February 20th to March 1st. Primary election day is March 5th. Please vote for change. Vote for Dr. Missick.
Join in, just rethinking the victory.